So I'm here to talk about the environment, so I thought it would be appropriate to begin with a theory. Now, this is not the theory of evolution or relativity. I think it's more groundbreaking than that. And it is called the theory of love. Now, this theory is very simple. It has two postulates. Number one, when you love what you do, you become very good at it. And number two, when you love something or someone, you're inspired to protect it, or him or her. Now, I grew up with two things that I loved very much, and the first was art. For 10 years, I did musical theater, so I was singing, dancing, acting. And then at 15, I started teaching kids musical theater, and I haven't stopped. At 16, I had the chance to study creative writing in New York for a summer, which led me to take English studies at the University of the Philippines. My second love is the environment, and I say this with hesitation because I never thought that I would be doing what I'm doing now. But then maybe my two interests go together because, as they say, the earth without art is just eh. Now, my dad is an environmental lawyer, so by the time I was about 4 years old, I was already planting trees. And when I showed this picture to my best friend, he said, "Oh my God, your brother is so cute." And I was like, "That's me. I am a lady." At 8 years old, we were swimming with juvenile sharks and turtles, and at 15 years old, I became a scuba diver. And you know what they say about us divers? Basta diver, sweet lover. And so that's how my love affair with the Philippine seas got bigger. Did you know that the Philippine seas is home to 5 out of the 6 species of marine turtles? It's also the home of the golden South Sea pearl, and the biggest fish, which is the whale shark or the batanding. We also hold more species of corals than the entire Great Barrier Reef, and more than the US Sea and the Caribbean Sea put together. I would like to take this opportunity to remind people that corals are not rocks, okay? They're actually animals that provide home to other animals. Last year, there was a study that came out declaring the Philippines as the country where the action is. The study said that we have more diversity on land and water than any other place in the world. And this was published in BBC, it was in Fox, it was on Nat Geo. So I think that if Ninoy Aquino said that the Philippines is worth dying for, I think it's worth diving for. Now, a few months later, we were again in the homepage of Nat Geo, but this time we were featured as the best shots of imperiled sea life. And when I saved the photo, the file name was garbage. And it's very clear how dirty our waters have become. And if the Philippines is a center of biodiversity, we also happen to be the center of adversity. And we have somehow evolved into the only species that creates waste that nature can't digest. This marine turtle, if you watched Finding Nemo, you would know that turtles can live up to 100 years old. But this turtle died at a very young age because it wasn't able to digest the pieces of plastic that you see right there. But you know, it's not only animals that are affected. Of course, humans are too. Like Joey Ayala said, ang lahat ng bagay ay magkaugnay. So anything we put in the ocean goes back to us. By the way, anything illegal and destructive, we are the trendsetters of it. So dynamite fishing, muro-ami, paaling, cyanide fishing, that all began in the Philippines. And 1 tablespoon of cyanide can damage 15 hectares of coral reefs. And that's why now, only less than 1% of our coral reefs, the richest in the world, remain in excellent condition. Last year, this hit the newspaper, and it was about illegal wildlife trade, massive illegal wildlife trade. And when I heard about this news, I was a wreck. I was crying, and I couldn't eat, and I couldn't sleep, and I was thinking about how it was like a breakup, but worse. Because boys are replaceable. Marine resources are not. Okay? About to graduate college, and I wasn't a lawyer or a scientist, but I was a writer. So I started writing government agencies. Parang I turned into an environmental lawyer overnight. And one by one, they replied. You know, one government agency passed me on to another, and the one that was supposed to help me said, "Let me look into this." And then 3 weeks later, he said, "Let me check it out." And, you know, but sometimes the only mode of transportation available is a leap of faith. So I took that leap of faith all the way to the Philippine Senate, and I camped out of Senator Zubiri's office. And you know, in the word environmental, I think I'm more mental than enviro. So I waited for him, and I had all my letters, and I said, "Sir, like, I don't know what to do anymore. I've tried and this and that." And he was like, oh, there's a Senate hearing tomorrow, maybe you should testify. And I laughed. And I said, oh my God, you're serious. And I was like, yeah, you have something to say, so go ahead and do it. So I spent the whole night writing my speech, and I ended up testifying in the Senate. And part of my speech ended up in the front page of the newspaper. And when I checked my phone, I had so many messages from people, and one was from my friend in Cotabato. And he said, girl, ganda ng hair mo. Thanks. But you know, at that time, my dad always reminded me to see every crisis as an opportunity. And if you look at the Chinese word for crisis, it's composed of two characters, danger and opportunity. And that became the opportunity for people to gather online on Skype one evening, and we all just met on Twitter, and we said, so what are we going to do about this? And that's how Save Philippines was born. I am, as my intro said, the official chief mermaid of Save Philippines. And I say official because I received a letter from the government addressing me as the co-founder. Maybe there's some truth to that because mermaids have no fear of depths and have great fear of shallow living. So some of our projects include launching a new website which will allow people to volunteer and report. And then we just launched our mobile app, which allows people to access a database of dive sites, dive shops, and NGOs, which you can volunteer for. And we have a special reporting feature, so if you want to take pictures and send it to us, then you have that opportunity as well. Now I will talk to you about some issues about being a chief mermaid. Number one, I don't have holidays and weekends, because environmental issues don't have holidays and weekends. I am the worst date ever, because in the middle of a date, the Philippine Navy will call me, and they call me Mom A, as in M-O-M-A. So they go, Mom A, there's been an illegal exploitation of corals, ganyan. And then I have to spend the rest of the night on the phone with media and government officials, so don't date me. And of course, financial stability. I mean, Mother Earth is a great client, but she doesn't pay very well. But unfortunately, there are companies and agencies that do, so it's always about finding that balance. And one of my greatest challenges is how to make sharks lovable. Now, I think sharks are the most feared, but yet most misunderstood creatures. There are only 10 fatal shark attacks every year. And we human beings, on the other hand, kill 70 to 100 million sharks, almost exclusively for their fins. But in the Philippines, we're a little bit more resourceful, so we actually believe that it makes us whiter. And this photo was taken outside Market in Taguig. There are shark finning communities in Mindanao, this is where this photo was taken, and also up north where there are families who slaughter sharks together. The key to every environmental issue, I think, is education and awareness. So when I walked into a Manila Ocean Park and I saw this ad, I was very upset. And, my hobby is writing letters, diba? So I wrote a letter to the management. And I said, for an institution that claims to be promoting marine education, you're not doing your job. You of all people should know that they don't attack. I mean, why don't you just call it Shark Encounter? Because that's what you want to promote, right? Humans swimming with sharks. And look at the shark that you chose. All its teeth are out there, like it's about to bite something. And a month later, I saw this. And their latest poster even says, say no to shark fin soup and let's support tourism. Now, I also love teaching kids, and that's me with some of my students, and that's me singing Part of Your World, because that's part of the mermaid duties. And one of the best things that I ever got is this drawing from a 6-year-old girl named Ariel, like a little mermaid. And she wrote me a letter, and that's supposed to be her and me, and then she said that the sharks are the ones guarding us. And then she said, I think sharks are scary because they are trying to protect their home. And you can see the little fish there saying, help. So maybe there's a bit of progress there. And this little girl happens to be Dylan Wilkes' daughter. My new hobby is writing legislation. So I ended up, sending these 2 legislations, and there are some government officials who filed it for me, so they're up for hearing. And as my intro also said, I was the first Filipino and the youngest recipient of this award, which was given to me 2 months ago in the Kingdom of the Netherlands. And the 50,000 euros that I was given, which is about 2.5 million pesos, will be going to a shark sanctuary in the Visayas Seas. Now, I've been standing here talking and talking, and we might be wondering why. Why does that 24-year-old girl care so much? And it's not just about environment for environment's sake. It has to be framed in such a way that it's environment for humanity's sake. And I love this ad in particular because it says, just because you don't see it, it doesn't mean it isn't there. And it's about that little boy and little girls who will feel the impact of the decisions we make, even when we're not around anymore. One day I was having a particularly bad day, and I told my friend, I said, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore. I think it's easier to give up, walk away, and not do this. It's a hopeless cause. And then she looked at me and said, really? Because I think it's easier to care. And she's absolutely right. I think that the worst environmental issue is not global warming or pollution, it's apathy. And when you don't care about the things that are happening around you, that's when the problems happen, and that's when the problems start getting bigger. I care about the 90% of Filipinos who don't know how to swim, which has resulted into 6,000 Filipino children drowning every year. And we're an archipelago. We're completely surrounded by water. I think Filipino children should be born looking like this. Right? I care about the 4 out of 10 coastal residents who live below poverty line and the 8.4 billion pesos that we lose because we don't protect our seas. That same number is enough to send 2 million kids to school. I care about the 1 million fisher folk who contribute $1 billion to the economy every year. And I care about the 35 tons of edible seafood that we could be producing and eating if we just learn to protect our seas. In other words, dapat walang Pilipino na nagugutom. I have made a lot of enemies along the way, both here and abroad in my past year. And this article was published in Miami Times a month ago. And they interviewed the largest U.S. Reseller of wildlife trade. And he specifically mentioned me and said that Oposa is this and this. And environmentalists are weirder than Michael Jackson. Thanks. But before when I was still starting out, I used to cry a lot about these issues, but now I just kind of shake it off and say, okay, what are you going to do about it? And well, guess what? This is only my first year, so there's a lot more stuff to do. I also don't fit the stereotypical environmental bill, because one thing, I'm not an angry tree hugger. I mean, I take the problems of the world seriously, but myself, I don't. And I've never hugged a tree. I'm not vegetarian because I have Cebuana roots and I can't give up Cebu lechon. I take a bath every day and I brush my hair. So I try, because I think if you respect your work, you would show up looking respectable. And, I can't tell you all the parts of a shark, but I can sing you all of Leia Salonga's songs. And I'm not experienced. Like I said, I've only been doing this for a year, and all the time I hear people saying, you're so young, what do you know? You don't know anything. And you know what? They're right. I don't claim to be an expert, and you know what? I hope I never become one. I want to be a lifelong student of the Philippines and its environment. And besides, who says you can't save the world in style? Diba? High heels, blow-dried hair, and lip gloss. And my modern-day revolution has love at the very core of it. And sometimes I think that advocates and activists forget this a lot. And I think that when you do things with love, you attract more people, and change happens faster. And why don't we just promote what we love instead of bashing what we hate? Maybe the world and the World Wide Web would be less cynical and less polluted. My modern day revolution and my idea worth spreading is to stop global warming. What do I mean by that? Just sitting around, bitching, tweeting, attacking people, but not really doing anything about it. That's how to stop global warming. You do something. And I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna lie, sometimes this work feels like one big heartbreak conference, but like Rihanna said, there is love in a hopeless place. And it's about recognizing that anger and turning it into courage to make things the way they're supposed to be. Before I'm an environmentalist and before I'm a writer and a performer, I'm a Filipino. And most of us here are Filipino, and that has always been the very core of why I do what I do. If you look at the Philippine map, we're just a bunch of islands thrown together. And there's really nothing that unites us, except maybe SM, because you can find it everywhere. But more seriously, what really connects us is the Philippine seas. And I like what E. Cummings said. He said, for whatever we lose, like a you or a me, it's always ourselves we find in the sea. And as Filipinos who live in this country, we have a greater responsibility. Because if we don't do something for it, who else will? And I want to leave you with the quote that I live my life by. I'm one person, I'm 24 years old, but I am one. And I love this country to the core of my bones. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life serving it. And if the people will lead, the leaders will follow. And so on behalf of all the sharks and fish in the Philippines, thank you very much.